the Kohinoor, the most controversial diamond in the world. It was dug up in India around the 13th century and is now in the possession of the country that colonized it, the Great Britain. For almost 2 centuries, the British had control over India. At this time, the British gave the Indians benefits like better communications and more infrastructure. But they also gave them problems like making soldiers break their holy rules and taking resources from them. Imperialism had both positive and negative effects on India and Great Britain.
Great Britain had an imperial relationship with India and Asia for hundreds of years. They first arrived August 24th, 1608. As the British were having an industrial revolution, they needed more raw materials, which is where India came into play. By this, Great Britain had invested to now use India as their workforce. Imperialism is when a mother country is influencing the military power of another area. The British exploited India positively and negatively, but due to this, they had invested most of their estate into India. Great Britain used the people of India as their workforce and as an army. And through this time, there were conflicts due to mistreatment by Great Britain to the Indians, which then led to them eventually leaving August 15th, 1947.
Britain's imperialism had major benefits and drawbacks for India. Great Britain made a deal with India where they would go help them develop their country. In return, they would give them lots of resources that they couldn't get or didn't have enough in Britain. There were lots of positives for India during this time with Great Britain. Britain helps a lot with big things inside of the country like infrastructure, agriculture, wealth, relief work, and a rise in export trades, industrialization, and much more. They also help with problems such as infanticide, abolishing slavery, ending the slave trade, sanitation, and much more. There was a decent amount of negatives during Britain's time with controlling India too, such as doing a little bit too much. They took too much control of the government, so now India's government doesn't know how to take care of India on its own. Also, they gave too many materials that India didn't need. That caused large rates of unemployment due to not relying on workers for materials. Then poverty came into play because people weren't making money. Those are all bad, but the worst is when Great Britain takes more than they were given. British rule is known as the death of sugar. The sugar is during their rule where they are sweet and they do a lot for the country. But then when they leave, it's the knife because they take a large amount of money and materials. After looking at the data, examples, and disadvantages that India has received, it looks pretty even. Britain does offer a lot for their country and does a good job, but it depends on how much they take when they leave. That could be the deciding factor. While India was getting imperialized, they were faced with many pros and cons, but the country is a better place than it was.
Great Britain's imperialism provided many benefits and drawbacks for their country. In the late 1800s, Europeans wanted power across the globe by taking power over other colonies. India also had many resources like cotton and crops in the tropics. This could supply many materials for British factories and give Europeans control over an important region. This provides them more land for themselves, more resources, money, population, and trade, which is a huge advantage for them. This also caused them to be stretched very thin with money. Great Britain provided railways, paved roads, and millions of acres across cultivation to India. They were also doing so much work, and this created a tough financial situation. But even though there were negative drawbacks, there were many more positives, and Great Britain was highly successful in their imperialism towards India.
There were benefits and drawbacks of imperialism in Great Britain and India. The Indians did not get their freedom from Britain until January of 1947. Although both of the countries had many benefits, they also had many disadvantages. India thinks the Kohinoor is theirs because it was mined in their country, but Britain thinks it's theirs because they had control over the country. This is relevant because of King Charles's coronation.